Sean, for that introduction, and thank you everyone at New Prague and Google for having us here. Like Sean mentioned, I think one of those benefits is that you can hear multiple stories. So while we're going to be talking about three different components, community, culture, and learning approach, I could definitely see that there was funding in our story, there's vision in our story, professional development, and technology. And I think you'll see the same with New Prague as well. So we are here today to talk about more culture and community and learning approach. And what we're really going to talk about is and share our story. Like I said, you'll see that there are similarities for if you're in this midst of planning, and then you'll find your own uniqueness. But before we jump in, just a quick snapshot of Bloomington Public Schools. So we are just over 10,000 students, 47% diversity, 13% of our students are English language learners, and 41% qualify for free and reduced spending, or free and reduced lunch. We have 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, 10 elementaries, an alternative high school, and 2 early childhood centers. In 2007, to start our journey, our voters about the Bloomington community passed a referendum for $3 million per year. And that really set the foundation for where we are today. So like Sean mentioned, we invested in infrastructure, so our network and our telecommunications. And we came up with a replacement plan for technology in the classroom. And then after a few years, we started to talk about what was the next step. So much like Sean, we started looking at what other communities were doing, what research was saying, and we decided that the next step for us was to really put a device in the hands of our students. So in 2012, we went back to our voters, and we were successful in passing another referendum, $6 million per year, which was both for technology and safety and security. And the plan that we have is called Next Technologies for Learning. And the whole goal of this plan is that we believe that technology can help personalize and support student learning in their pathway to college and career ready. There are really 3 components to that plan, and we'll talk about those when we talk about culture and community and learning approach. But digital content, so really providing professional development for our staff to digitize their curriculum and move away from textbooks. Also providing devices for students to then access that content, and then tech support so that those devices work when we need them to. The second component is anytime, anywhere learning. So really starting to look at how we can use space and time differently, whether it's in school or whether we're expanding opportunities for learning outside of the school day. And then the third is personalized data. So schools, we are overflowing with data. We have information systems and grading systems and finance and HR. And it's sometimes those systems don't talk to each other. So it's really trying to put the right data to the right people at the right time, so that whether it's teachers or parents and families and students can help support students in their learning journey. So our timeline, we started piloting this last spring, about 1 year ago, after our referendum passed. Our 6th grade students went one-to-one with Chromebooks. This past fall, 7th and 8th grade joined in, so all of our middle school students have a Chromebook as their one-to-one device. Next fall, our high school students will be in a one-to-one learning environment, and by 2016-17, all Bloomington students in grades 3 through 12 will be in a one-to-one environment. So I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Sean, who will start talking about culture.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to check because oh yeah, that's good. All right. I'm having this out-of-body experience because my name is Sean, and then I keep hearing things that Sean said, and I'm like, I don't feel like I said that, but that's Sean. So I've got it all squared away now. I'm on the stage. I have the microphone. I'm standing in front of a room full of educators. It's a really exciting thing to be able to do. I get to talk about culture and community, which is, again, pretty exciting things to get to talk about. This is the mission statement, the Bloomington Public Schools. The Bloomington Public Schools District is an educational leader. We feel very good about ourselves. Developing in all learners the ability to thrive in a rapidly changing world. This mission, to me, holds one of those great opportunities in it, those remarkable challenges about what we try to address and the reason why we might shake up our system as much as we are by considering one-to-one. It's this idea of all learners. So we talk about all learners and the ability to reach all learners, and we know in public education what that means. That means all. That means every student who comes into our system, that we endeavor to teach all of them. And that, to me, is one of those challenges, those key element challenges, that are the things that are worth doing. Right? I don't think anybody here has yet accomplished that all mission. And so by adding something in, by disrupting your system, by looking at a way to do things differently with a different set of tools, we might get closer to all. And to me, that's rather energizing, exciting. It makes it worthwhile to trade my time for pay. We have a plan in Bloomington Public Schools. Andy highlighted the 3 elements of that plan. Conveniently, because there's 3 and we are given 3 sections, I'm going to mash these things together. Whether they fit or not, it's all right. We're just friends. But digital content, I'm connecting this one to culture. And part of that reason is because a common element across our system is content. Having things for kids to know and learn, having a way to demonstrate that content and provide that content for students. It's a way to create a talking point. One of the reasons why we went into content very early on is because we wanted to make sure that families that were unfamiliar with this reality that we're going to, even beyond our school, would see their kids interacting with schoolwork. And so one of the things that we did is we focused on content early on. Our content has 4 elements: professional development, digital content writing, devices, and tech support. And so as a part of our culture, we endeavor to do these things and do them extremely well. To create a common culture or to create a common understanding during a shift or to do anything worthwhile doing, it's important to have a common language. I learned this at West Junior High in Hopkins when I was teaching there, and we were focused on literacy, that if we want kids to be able to talk about their thinking, it's useful if all of us teachers use similar language so the kids know what they're talking about. Same can be said for endeavoring to do a one-to-one. And so there are many frameworks out there. There's the SAMR framework. Who's using SAMR? Anybody using SAMR? All right. There is TPAC. Anybody? TPAC? Yep, some. Okay. Anybody using RAT? Anybody else on the RAT? Nope. See, it's just me. I'm holding my hand up here. We go with RAT because it's from the University of Minnesota. That's not true. We just found that out. We go with RAT because it's simple. It's 3. It provides a framework, a way to talk about where all of our teachers are on their journey. And so replacement, amplification, transformation. It's simple. The way that I describe it to my teachers is replacement is about the tools. That's moving away from desktop publishing, doing something that you're really good at with Microsoft Word or in my district, Pages, and moving to the cloud because of enhanced capabilities of Google Docs and the ability to collaborate. Amplification focuses on the teacher. Amplification, to me, and a way to describe it to a system, is when the teacher starts to teach using those tools, when they're actually designing their lessons because of the tools that they have available to them. When they think to themselves, I can do peer editing differently because I have Google Docs than I could before, and they change that up. That's amplification to me. Transformation, the way that I describe transformation for our teachers is, I don't know what it is yet. Because transformation is apparent when the students surprise us. So if replacement is about the tools, amplification is about the teachers, transformation is about the students, it's a way to talk about this in such a manner that my teachers can find their access point along that way. I can learn a new tool. I can teach differently, and then I can set up the conditions for students to have success. So one of the key elements of a successful culture in the 21st century, 15 years in, is the ability to collaborate, right? And so we've adopted the same tool set as New Prague. We have Moodle as our LMS. We like Moodle because it's we own it. It's on a server in our room that has pros and cons. We like it because of that. We use Google Drive. The idea, this may miss some, but as you're making this decision and thinking about this, the idea that you have unlimited storage in Google Drive is pretty remarkable. because that means now I can have 4th graders creating videos for content and publishing those videos to their Drive account and sharing them, and I don't have to worry about YouTube. So no longer do I have to get stuck in that conversation about, what do I do? They're not 13. We can use Drive to do that. And then even more remarkable about that unlimited piece is that in our system, our kids will start in kindergarten with an active account and go all the way through 12th grade. Imagine a portfolio that takes advantage of that. And you've removed the limitations of space, right? So that's a big deal. We've also gone with Chrome because, very much like Sean, we had a lot of people, there's lots of questions that come. There's this anxiety time that comes from not knowing, right? And one of the things that I've learned in rolling this out is learning how to balance what is a real concern and what is just from not knowing, and how to handle those things differently. The thing about Chromebooks is we had lots of people asking, can I get a device? And we're like, yeah, I guess you can use one. You're not going to want it as your primary device for everything you do, but you can use one. And so then we would make them available, and about 5 minutes in, they'd be like, oh, I get this. Like, yeah, that's the point. And then the last thing I want to point out is this, because I feel like people take this for granted. All of those cursors shared on one line is remarkable. And every time I see that, I still think, wow, that's remarkable. And if we aren't impressed by the ability to do that together, then we're missing something, right? Because we should be building that in to our culture everywhere. And so we endeavor to build our culture around collaboration. And so fundamentally, outside of the technology realm, what we're doing is considering our instruction and the learning that our students do, and we're using the Dufour's work and Learning Tree to talk about the difference from the shift from current model to a collaborative model. And so when you look at this shift, fundamentally it's from isolation to collaboration. And that creates discomfort in some ways. When I was in prep college, or teacher prep college, I remember very distinctly being told that after I got my tenure, I could shut my door and do whatever I wanted, right? That was 1990-ish that I was told that. Now that's unimaginable. Why would you shut your door? You should have your door open, and people should be popping in to see what's going on and learning from you, because it's a simple matter of math. If I'm doing things well and I share it with you, then I'm doing things well for more students. So we endeavor on this. It goes well sometimes. It runs into trouble sometimes. We've had questions about intellectual property. How do I share my stuff that I work so hard on? And so we're navigating those waters because it's important that the adults in the system have that opportunity to navigate those as well. And then we have, of course, the devices. And by design, we wanted to find a device that got out of the way as fast as possible. Because that technology, I think this is a common quote, the technology that serves best is that which is least visible, right? So you're holding a pen. Some of you are holding a pen. That's weird because we're at a technology event. I'm just kidding. It's not that weird. But that pen represents a form of technology that you just take for granted because it just does what it's supposed to do. And so we believed that to be true about Chromebooks, and then we asked students to tell us a little bit about it.
One thing that has changed since you got your Chromebook?
I have learned more about what interests me.
The biggest change is that you don't forget a lot of your homework. You don't need to always just shove papers in your folders and put them in your books. You just have everything organized in your Chromebook and ready to go.
I don't have to write on paper anymore.
Well, I think it was really cool in social studies class. We were doing a simulation, adventure thing, and it was really helpful to use the Chromebooks instead of having to share 4 desktop computers in the corner. We each had our own computer to do our own research on. That sped things up a lot, and yeah, I think that was really helpful.
How have you done school differently since you got the Chromebook?
I've been researching for reading and my other classes. I think it's easier and it helps more because now that I have a Chromebook, I can do homework at home since now I can just use mine and not the home computer, and I can check my grades.
I've been a lot more excited to do homework.
What piece of advice you have for students next year when they get their first Chromebook, when they get the Chromebook for the first time?
To always charge your Chromebook and do appropriate stuff on it.
Bookmarking things is a good way to get on things easier than just looking it up a lot. You can just bookmark it, and that's a really good tip for.
I would tell them to make sure that they always have it charged in the morning, and they make sure that they bring it to school, because it's terrible if you don't have it charged or if you don't bring it.
Okay, so that video was shot by students, and it was not a long time in. This was actually during our pilot, and I asked these questions about a month into our pilot. And so, this idea of what technology is adopted the fastest and gets out of the way the quickest, this is 1 month in last year, not even the real launch. We call it year 0. So we have year 0 as a run-up year, and this is the students' responses to those questions. We've created a culture of support, and so leading up to this time, with the referendum dollars, we have put together a variety of instructional cohorts, and so we take about 50 teachers each year to examine different types of instructional approaches. So flipped was one. We run hybrid classes where the classes meet face-to-face some of the time and then online some of the time. And so for 3 years, we provided those release days, 4 release days during the school year, and 20 hours of time during the summer to develop. And then that was pre-referendum or pre-one-to-one. And then once we moved to one-to-one, we continued this culture of support by providing release days for our middle school teachers to meet as collaborative teams, to look at their current curriculum, think about what they needed to upload to the cloud, what they needed to adopt and change as a team, and then have those discussions, right? And so this is this idea of moving from isolation to collaboration, and we had good responses. They appreciate the opportunity to work together. Overwhelmingly, we have 3 middle schools, so getting those teams from 3 middle schools together in one room was positive, and it was one of the things that they highlighted as something they appreciated. Another part of our culture that I appreciate is I still walk around because I'm really keenly into this. I'm adept at using technology. I'm a big fan of Google for a whole variety of reasons, but really what I am at core is an educator. And so I want to walk around and do this assessment, formative assessment of what's going on. What am I seeing in the changes that are different? And the things that excite me is I see sometimes students very comfortably sitting by themselves, connected in a way that they may not have been connected before. In other ways, the adoption is so quick, these quotes all highlight an ownership. I own my work. I'm able to do it differently now because of my level of ownership of that work. I can't lose my papers. I was a kid who lost a lot of papers, so I appreciate that. I can do my work at home, and that was important. All right. Oops. This is the part of the culture that we're on in this growth journey, right? We're not there yet. This is first year. We're still seeing what the ripples of this system does. This is a good quote. If your students are sharing their work with you, they're making it good enough. If they're sharing it for the world, they're making it great. What I hope happens in our culture is that when we think about instruction and what we want our students to do, that as a default, we think publish. That it's never done, it's just either in draft or it's live. And when we get to that point in our culture, in our school, I think that our learning lifts up to a high degree. And then the last piece about our culture, I had to get a Lev quote in there. Vygotsky, everybody? Woohoo! A little shout out for Vygotsky. Just me? Okay. This picture is my last story for culture. We have a very diverse school district. We're separated by 35W. On one side is affluence, on the other side is poverty. That's the general perception. Whether or not it's accurate, we can have a conversation later if you'd like. But what we've done is, the efforts to integrate our system so that we don't have racially isolated schools. You know all of these things. And 2 years ago, we were given the opportunity to think about it differently. How might we do it different than move kids around? And so I mistakenly, but then turned out to be a good thing, said, couldn't we just do this? And they were like, yes, we can, and now you do it. And it's not me, it's two reading teachers. So we have a reading teacher from Olson Middle School, and we have a reading teacher from Valley View Middle School, and they have paired up two of their classes, and they are the Bloomington Book Chat. And they do, in their reading class, they're reading together across our district. They're sharing experiences across our district, and then they meet 3 times together face-to-face. And so this is 2 students from 2 different middle schools having an experience together that just didn't happen before. It happens without the technology. It's enhanced or accelerated by the technology that we have available. Now, community, the community portion of this is incredibly important for us. We're building all of this together, that idea from isolation to collaboration. It has to be done in the community. It has to be done in such a way that our community can connect to it. When we think about community, we think about anytime, anywhere learning happening inside of our school, inside of our classroom, outside of our classroom, and outside of our school. 3 things that we've done to help get that ready are the cohorts that I mentioned. We did a wireless infrastructure upgrade so that all of our learning spaces have an access point now. A key element, over and over you'll hear, is making sure that your technology is sound, that your infrastructure is ready to go, because they may come kicking and screaming to the line of using the technology. I don't know about this one-to-one, it seems really scary. But then about 2 weeks after you flip the switch, they're like, wait a minute, the internet was down for 10 minutes today. What's going on? And you get lots of phone calls, right? So you got to make sure that your infrastructure is solid, and then making sure families are connected. So one of the key elements is making sure families are connected. And the very first step to making sure families are connected is to check your assumptions, right? And so I used to work in one of the middle schools, and they wouldn't give homework. They just wouldn't give homework because they assumed that kids didn't have computers at home and access at home because of the population that they served, right? To me, that was a rather bold assumption to make. It may have been true, it may not have been true, but we should check it out. And so what we did is we actually came up with a variety of surveys, and we asked kids and families whether you have internet at home. We started at 13% at our highest rate, and you can see the graph, and now we're down to 1%. Right? So we asked, and then when we found out, it's 13%, suddenly that seemed surmountable. Like, okay, we could address that. And so then we came up with a variety of ways to do it. We work with an organization called everyoneon.org and got our entire district. So for anyone that attends Bloomington Public Schools, they can get a discounted rate through everyoneon.org. There's a variety of choices there. We also made sure to sit down at the Hennepin County Library and say, hey, we're doing this. Likeliness is students might come to the library. Can we partner on this? We can put a wireless access point in here to make sure that you have access. We can help filter the content that our kids are using on the Chromebook when they're in the space. Hennepin County stepped up and was really excited about it and has been a marvelous partner in this. And one of the things that they said was, we're so glad that you came and talked to us so that we knew it was coming. And then it enhanced the partnership out of that, right? So connecting with our community. Another key element of our community is the people that help serve the students. And so here's on launch day at one of our middle schools. That's our entire tech team. Let me point that out again. That's our entire tech team. We may be missing 2 techs. That's our entire tech team running all of these devices right now. They all were there, all hands on deck for rollout day. We rolled out each of our middle schools in a total of 9 hours, 3 hours at each middle school. Normal problems, I forgot my password, some other minor issues, but within 3 hours at each middle school we were launched. This one right here, this is Melissa Benson. Our techs, the best part of our techs is that they work with students, and they're comfortable working with students. And so we don't have this strong wall between technology, the people that make things run, and the students. There's actually a crossover so that they see each other and experiencing that together. Another element of our community is the support, on-site support. So I'm a district guy. I wear the district badge. But these people are on the sites. And so what we did is we put together starting with our media directors, a team of support at each of the sites so that when they took release day, there was always someone there to help them get started, always someone there to check in with them, someone there to answer their questions, someone there to tell them it's going to be okay. And not only is it going to be okay, but it's going to be amazing. And so having a team together like that was a key to our success so far. Our community is expanded, right? So our natural inclination of what happens is we look within our district, but really we've got a pretty remarkable community around Minnesota. I think we're a leader in education. I used to say to my kids, you are going to school in one of the best districts, in one of the best states, in one of the best places for education in the world. That's amazing. We have various opportunities throughout the area. The Minnesota Google Summit's coming up May 9th. Not really a shameless plug because I don't get paid for it, but still a really amazing event. We've sent cohorts the last 2 years. We'll send another one. We've sent 50 each year, and we're looking at 80 this year because people want to go to this thing on Saturday. Along with that, we are also a part of the Minnesota Partnership for Collaborative Curriculum. So thinking about how can we ditch textbooks or how can we ditch Texas publishers, and how can we look at the experts within our district, and would it be possible to create our own content? That is built in Google, so we have a domain for that, so everything's done through Google, and then we actually wrap it up in Moodle. In addition to those, we also connect with other districts. And so by going to the Minnesota Google Summit, by going to Superhero Tech Camp, by going to some various other things, ties, we've managed to create relationships and connections with other districts. And so for the last 3 years, ourselves, Hopkins, White Bear Lake, the Blake School, Edina, Richfield have participated in a professional development event we call the Hive. And that's where we bring teachers from all of those districts together to one site, and then we do a quick workshop where people get to share what they're doing and what they've experienced. And then, again, this is my formative check. I walk around. If I see kids just sitting in desks with Chromebooks, not a lot has changed. If I see kids sitting alone with Chromebooks, I'm too dangerous to the individual, losing that social aspect. And so what I believe is that we're creating these spaces where innovation can happen. Our teachers are excited. They're excited. They were excited immediately. They weren't really kicking and screaming to the edge. That was an unfair characterization of them. They had honest questions that I respect and appreciate. But immediately afterwards, they're seeing this high level of ownership. They're coming up with great ideas. They've been freed to think broader about what they're doing, and it's very exciting. Our last piece for community is this young man, is William Tedder. Does anybody know him? William? Check out his followers on Twitter. It's 25,000 followers. That's about 25,000 more than me. He started his own business in 8th grade. He identified a need. Hey, you can't play Minecraft on a phone in tournament style. So he figured it out. He invented it. He runs a business now called the Lifeboat Server. He's hiring. This is what he says about the importance of having access. In the real world, you can't have superpowers, but in the virtual one, you can. You can help to create, to advance the society as a whole. We've hired young William. William now does an independent study with us. This is in our tech office, working with our lead programmer, working on various projects that we can use his skill set for. And that is the community that we have seen in just a year of development, right? Like, we're still early on in this piece. Having those plans in place, being able to communicate the plan are all key elements, but I think I'm excited to see what comes next. Like, really, this is just year one. Andy's going to talk about our various learning approaches, and I'm done.
So yes, final learning approach. And Sean kicked it off really talking about culture and our vision and mission, which is to help all learners thrive in a rapidly changing world. And the way that we make that possible, that we make that alive or real, is we have pathways to graduation. So we have these different milestones. So preschool ready, ready for kindergarten, reading by 3rd grade, and so on. The ultimate being, what is college and career ready? So in order to meet these milestones with the skills and knowledge that kids need in order to move up a level or eventually to be college and career ready, they need to have a personalized growth plan. So how we go about creating that personalized growth plan, which many of you may also be endeavoring to do with the world's best workforce legislation that's put in place, is we're looking at personalized data. How can we personalize that data, personalize that learning, so again, that families, students, and teachers have the best information that they need to make informative decisions. So like many of the things, we use the tools that we already have in place. So before we went one-to-one, we were Google Apps for Education school district starting in 2010. We also have another tool which we call the Hub, which again is a way that we can have all of these different information systems sort of be like a dashboard or a hub where teachers and parents and families can get the information that they need. So it gives current data. So that's one way that we can help communicate and connect with our families. We also are looking at academics. So not just what is my grade right now in algebra class, but how can we look at long-term summative data? So what do those test scores mean as a parent? What does a 216 on the map? What does that really mean for my student? How are they progressing? Are they on track? Do they need to be monitored? Do they need to be enriched? And then eventually we're looking at that personalized growth plan. So how can we include not just the data, not just the academics, but we know that there is more to a child. We know that there's those non-academics, their dreams, their hopes. How can we help them along with their career development? So the first part is really looking again at that student information and providing that in the hub. So things like, as a teacher, not having to remember how many places can I go to find the phone number for the parent that I need to call. So having contact information provided, and also the ability for parents to update their contact information. Knowing as a teacher what programs my students are in. Are they on an IEP? Are they on a 504? Knowing what attendance and the schedule, and what is the current homework so that parents can help plan for their learning. All of this information is currently in the hub, and all families, parents, students, and our teachers can access this information. So that was really the first step in helping to personalize that learning. Here's an example of what's really exciting to me is that we're ditching the paper planner. So because our middle school students are in a one-to-one environment, they no longer need that paper planner that costs a couple $1,000s to print. Instead, because they have access to the hub, because teachers are using Google Calendar to say what homework is for the day, what it is for the week, students now can have that planner and not just consume that information, but they can interact with that information. So you see here, for example, there's check boxes. So students can mark their progression when they get done with an assignment. They can add a note. So if they need to add context to that, they can. And they can even communicate with their teachers. So it's that replacement idea, but it's actually even amplifying what they could do from the past. We're also looking at, again, that academic data. So not just what a current grade is for a child, but also looking at long-term tracking. What is the progression? So our Director of Research and Assessment, Dr. Dave Heisted, he came up with this pathways graph, which using summative data, in this case MAP, is able to sort of track out or project growth for children. And this is an important tool because, again, it gives the context for families, for students, for parents. How can I support my child if they're on track to graduate from high school? How can I support my child if they're on track to go to a two-year school or to a 4-year school, and so on? So that was the second step, and we added this last year into the hub. So again, trying to build upon how we are personalizing students' education in Bloomington. And then the last one, which is what we are currently working on, we hope to have in place by the fall of 2015 here, is adding more of that student-driven information. So again, we know that a child is not just their academics or behavior, but what is their career goals? How can we help them go about that? So using a tool that we currently have, the hub, and adding to it so that we can have this system in place so students can reach those pathways and milestones along their journey. So how are we doing? Well, it's really still year one, even though we've been planning for several years. So some anecdotal feedback. This was from last spring. One of our high schools, Kennedy High School, had a small pilot. So they had a small number of Chromebooks. They had some Wi-Fi hotspots that they were able to hand out. And Shelby was one of the students who was chosen for that pilot. How did it go for her? Well, before she received her Chromebook, she was typing up her AP papers on her smartphone. So just imagine that. It was a pretty small screen. She didn't have to go to the library anymore. She could work from home on her projects. And as you see, she started McAllister this past fall, and she received almost $10,000 worth of scholarships. Because when you have a culture of all in, when you have a community that wants to take down the barriers to access so that kids can learn outside of school as well, and when you have students who are motivated and know what career goals they want, you can see that it can be a success. Thank you.